What does it do, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Scotty Says. I am your host, and welcome to episode 131, my folks, and the splendor of sports in autumn around these parts just gets better and better. Dave Roberts and the fellas, the Dodgers, another pennant, and now on their way back to the Fall Classic, looking to become the first team this century to go back-to-back as World Series champions. And I believe they can and will get it done. Congratulations to the LA Dodgers. And just now I saw my Lakers tip off for game one of the NBA season marathon. And, well, Skinny Luka looked great, looked magnificent, but he's gonna need more help than just Reeves. And Bron is 2-3 weeks maybe away, so they say. This episode is not about the Dodgers or the Lakers. I do have a special season preview episode on my Lakers cooking in the oven. It'll be ready any minute now. But this episode, 131, is, as you know, about the LA Rams, chronicling the voyage of the SS Ramball. And here we are now with the Rams. We're about, well, past a third of the way through the season, and we've reached the bye. And I hope you saw my season preview episode on the Rams. I predicted at the bye the Rams would be 5-2, and at the bye the Rams are 5-2, just as I predicted. Now, as you may know, I did switch one victory and one L. I thought the Rams would get them damn Niners, and I thought that Baltimore would be too much for them. But as it turned out, Farmer Shanahan, I'm starting to think maybe I should start calling him Sorcerer Shanahan. He got Little McWonder again, and as you know, Baltimore, they have fallen on hard times now at 1-5. Ouchie, 1-5. And so Nola Marvelous and Rams got them. And then, as I thought, they did take care of business against Jacksonville and jolly old England. And so here we are now at the bye. In this episode, we're going to look more in depth at the league at this juncture in the season. We're not going to focus too much on the Jaguars game. The final score was 35-7 Rams. So, it wasn't really that competitive. And there's the logistics of traveling and the time change and all of that business to take into account. The weather wasn't great. And so the main thing was, as you know, L's and dubs and L's. Which one did you get? McWonder got the dub. That's the main thing. But we'll look at the numbers. We must apply the principle. So we will do that and give out our game balls. And then we'll move into the meat of this episode, which really will be a look around the league at this juncture in the season. And we'll look ahead after the bye at the Rams' final 10 games of the regular season and see if the projections from that preview episode have changed or if I'll hold fast. And I can give you a little hint. Hold fast! I told you at the beginning of the season that I thought the Rams would end up 12-5, and I'm going to hold fast to that. I said 5-2 at the bye. They're 5-2 at the bye. I'm saying the 12-5 that I predicted still looks good to me, but we'll go through it momentarily. Before we get to that, though, let's go ahead and do what we must do at this point in time. Let's apply the principle, my 25-30 principle, to this game. Well, when you look at the numbers, though, Why, it looked on paper as though Jacksonville, statistically anyway, outplayed the Rams. Jacksonville, more total yards than LA, more passing yards than LA, more rushing yards than LA, more yards per play than the Rams. Also, well, Jacksonville had more total plays, which makes sense. But that's where the statistical and numerical advantages cease for the Jags. Because despite all of the numbers that I've given you that would indicate they had an advantage in the game, the number that counts, 35-7, would say that it wasn't close at all. And why is that? Why would a team have such a high superior statistical advantage and be blowed out? Well, usually, it comes down to a couple of three things. They fall under the umbrella category of mistakes, blunders, you see. In Jacksonville, they had mistakes and blunders aplenty. And at this point, I will admit that, coach of the Jags, Liam Cohen, he is off the McWonder tree, so they have similar philosophies and likewise similar idiosyncrasies, you dig? So before we apply the principle to this game, I will preface it by saying that the Rams allowed no sacks on the day. Meanwhile, the Rams defense sacked Trevor Lawrence 7 times. 7 big sacks. 7 times. Lawrence was grazing on London turf. So when you factor in the sacks and the penalties, the Jags were penalized for over a football field's worth of yards. 119 penalty yards. 13, unlucky number 13. 13 big penalties. 119 penalty yards. The Rams only 5 penalties for 45 yards. And so neither team had turnovers on the day, which is interesting considering the conditions and such. But you see where Jacksonville met its demise. So let's go ahead and apply the principle now, shall we? Let's start with the victors. Let's start with the Rams. Well, Matt Stafford, 21 of 33, no sacks. 33, slightly over the cap of the 25-30 principle. What about rushing? Well, K. Will had 12 totes for 54 yards. Meager, modest. Corum, deuces, he also had 12 totes, okay? For 37 yards. Even meeker. But that's a grand total of 24 carries. That's short, McWonder, short. And so, you see, Coach McWonder missed both metrics. He was over in passing, 33 pass attempts, no sacks. He was under in rushing, short by a tote, 24 runs. And so his balance differential was a -9 on the day. Now let's look at Mr. McWonder's acolyte, Coach Cohen. How did Coach Cohen do? Well, Trevor Lawrence on the day, 23 of 48. 48? Damn. 23 of 48 and 7 sacks. Whoo, that's 55 pass attempts. The double nickel. 55. Come on, Coach Cohen. Chip off the old block, I guess. And so that's way over. And then what about rushing for Coach Cohen? Well, let's see. ATN only had 8 carries. Wow. Tootin had 5. 19 total runs. So he's short short, just like McWonder, just like his mentor. Liam Cohen also missed both metrics of the principal. The thing, though, with the Jags and Coach Cohen, my goodness, Coach Cohen had 55 pass attempts and 19 runs. That's a negative 36. Whoo, something wrong. Stinky. Negative 36 balance differential. McWonder only had a negative 9, and there you can sum it up right there. All right, and so we don't need to look any further. Case closed. Let's go ahead without any further ado and give out a few game balls, shall we? Game balls. I'd like to give a game ball out to Matty from the D, Matthew Stafford, 21 of 33, only 182 in yards, but 5 touchdown passes. And so, game ball, Matty. And Matty, let me say this right now about Matty. Matty is, I would say, he's in the top 3 or so for NFL MVP consideration at this juncture of the season. I'd have to say he's in the top metrics of passing categories for quarterbacks, and he's not turning the ball over. And that was really the biggest drawback with Matty's game, was that he would let that poltergeist get hold to him. But he's been restraining them poltergeist. So game ball, Matthew Stafford. I'd like to also give out a game ball, Devontae Adams. Now, Tay only had 5 catches on the day, and he only had 35 yards. It's not a big, eye-opening output on the day, but he had 3 touchdown passes, caught 3. And so, game ball, Tay pulling in the pay dirt, cash money in the end zone. Devontae Adams, game ball, sir. And let me give out a game ball on the defensive side for sure. Game ball, Cam Curl. Cam Curl was your leading tackler on the day. 8 solo tackles, 2 more assisted tackles. Cam Curl balling out. And then I have some honorable mentions as well. I like to stay on the defensive side for now. Honorable mention, Q, Quentin Lake. 4 tackles, solo, 2 more assisted tackles, and a sack. Q has been consistently strong all season long, and that Rams defense has been as well. And also, honorable mention, hey, what brought you and your people to Zimbabwe? Land, man. Let's give out a game ball to Nate Landman. The Landman. 3 solo tackles, 6 more assists, and he had a sack and a half. Nate Landman, always around the ball, wreaking havoc, hitting hard, popping off the screen. Honorable mention, Landman. And honorable mention, B. Young, 0, Byron Young, he only had a tackle and an assisted tackle, but he had 1.5 sacks, and B. Young now has recorded a consecutive game sack streak of 9. 9 consecutive regular season games, B. Young has recorded a sack. Extremely impressive, and that continued in England against the Jags. Honorable mention. And then one final honorable mention on the offensive side. I want to give an honorable mention to the Ghost, Colby Parkinson. Ooh, it's Halloween time coming up, so it's a perfect occasion for the Ghost. And the Ghost got busy. 3 receptions, 47 yards, but it's 15.8 yards per catch. That's showing some big play capability. Honorable mention to the Ghost, Colby Parkinson. And so, now, let's go ahead and take a look around the league. Shall we? Let's look around the NFL after week 7. Well, there's some interesting developments. Now, as you know, in that preview episode, I made my predictions of, who I expected would win each division. And for the most part, it's looking good. But, well, there are a couple of surprises at about a third or so of the way through the season. Some teams have had a bye, some have not, and so it's not precise, but we're in that ballpark. And so let's look at some of the more interesting trends around the league. Well, in the AFC East, the first thing that jumps right off the page is the Patriots. New England, they're 5-2. Now, I didn't call that one. I can tell you that right now. New England, they've scored more points than any other team in their division, and they've allowed fewer on defense than any other team in their division. And Buffalo is in their division. So that is surprising to me. We'll see if they can hold that trend and maintain it through the rest of the year. Let's look at the AFC North. Well, I thought, this is my big shocker so far, I thought the Ravens would win the division, and I thought that the Steelers and Bengals would be vying for wild cards. And lo and behold, at this juncture of the season, the Steelers are on top of the division, and the Ravens are on the bottom. 1-5. Very stinky. And so it more than likely it's over for them. I don't think they can come back from this hole. And I heard LaMarvelous still may not be back when they come back off their bye. And so the Ravens are in some deep doo-doo. Okay? The Browns are where I thought they'd be. I thought the Bengals would be better, but then I didn't foresee that Jughead Joe would go down with, turf toe or whatever his issue is. But then I see why Mike Tomlin was so agitated when the Bengals got Flacco. Mike Tomlin, he had an outburst. And I see why, because when Flacco played the Steelers, he lit them up. He lit them up. And so the Steelers and the Bengals are right there 1-2 with the Ravens at the bottom. The Steelers have the most points scored and have allowed the fewest in the AFC North, like the Patriots. The Steelers scoring more than the other teams in the division, allowing fewer than the other teams. Well done, Mike Tomlin. Let's look at the AFC South. This is the other big shocker. I didn't see this one coming. The Indianapolis Colts, 6-1. The best record in the NFL, 6-1. And the only loss was to the Rams, as you know, at the Palace in Inglewood. But, wow, look, the Colts, the numbers say they every bit deserve their record and their position atop the AFC South. They have scored the most points in the entire NFL. 232 points. That's more than anybody else in the entire league the Colts have. And their points allowed on defense is second in that division, only to the Texans. And the Texans, by the way, do have the number one scoring defense in the entire NFL. Well, the Colts are second only to them in their division. But the Colts lighten it up statistically wise. And so I thought the Texans would control that division. It does not look to be the case. The Titans are at the bottom where they belong. They are, I think, safe to say, the worst team in the NFL at 1-6. They have the least amount of points scored in the entire NFL. All right, and then finally, in the AFC, let's look at the West. Well, very interesting in the West because the Broncos. I didn't think the Broncos. I'm not really fond, as you may know, of Coach Payton, old Bounty Gate himself, and I don't really believe in the Broncos, but yet here they are, 5-2 after 7, and their defense is third in the AFC in terms of points allowed. So they're a top flight defense. So if the Texans have the number 1 rated defense in terms of points scored in the entire league, they're number 1. And if the Broncos are number 3 in the AFC, then the second defensive ranked team in terms of points allowed in the AFC is, it's the third place team in the AFC West, Kansas City. And I see why people are leery of Kansas City, because Kansas City is lurking now. They're right there. They have the number 2 ranked defense in the AFC in terms of points allowed at 124 after 7 games. Number 2 in the entire conference. And they have scored more points than any of the other teams in the AFC West. So they have the most points scored in the AFC West and second points allowed in the entire AFC. So statistically wise, you see, KC is coming, and I'm sure the Broncos and Chargers hear the footsteps, and I don't know, the Chargers haven't looked that right. In fact, the Chargers, they're 4-3, and they're in second place in the division currently, but they have scored fewer points than their defense has allowed. It's a bad sign, and there are a handful of teams that is the case for, but I don't tend to put stock into those teams. I don't buy into those teams. Those teams, I think, are illusions. They are mirages. They're fraudulent. All right, let's take a look at the NFC. In the NFC, well, there are only 2 them damn teams. There's them damn Cowboys and them damn Niners. And I'll be damned if them damn teams aren't somehow surprising me. We'll get to it. Let's start with the NFC East. Well, the Eagles, defending Super Bowl champions, that's not surprising. The Eagles, 5-2. They have allowed the fewest points in their division, but they haven't scored the most. In fact, they're third in their division in terms of offensive points scored. So I have to wonder about the Eagles. And then with all of the other stuff, now we just seen proof of concept. We just saw them win the Super Bowl, so they can overcome this. But they've only scored 5 more points than they've allowed. And at 5-2, they do have breathing room in the NFC East right now, because the second place team is them damn Cowboys. Now, as I told you repeatedly, going back some time now, I don't believe in them damn Cowboys. I believe they too are fraudulent. And yet, I'm just going to say it. This year, them damn Cowboys have surprised me. They have looked competent. They've looked competitive. They've looked well coached, interested. Even when they lose, they don't get blowed out. And why? Dak is playing some of the best quarterback in the league, and the Cowboys, well, wouldn't you know, the Cowboys have the number one scoring offense in terms of points scored in the entire NFL. Them damn Cowboys, huh? Well, they're in second place at 3-1. They got that ugly tie on their record, but with the most points scored, the problem is they've also given up the most points. They've given up the most points. Them damn Cowboys have scored the most points and given up the most points in the entire NFC. So that's why you see they're 3-3. I'm a poet and didn't know it. Okay? They've given up the most points in the NFC. They've scored the most points in the NFC. And they're 3-3. Maybe right as they should be. So it's going to be interesting to see how them damn Cowboys proceed as the season unfolds. And then the Commanders, they've had their issues with, well, Jaden Daniels, he's a slim, skinny dude, and he gets banged up, and so he's been in and out of the lineup, and, well, they're at 3-4. But the Commanders have scored more points than the Eagles, even though they're below 500. But the Eagles know how to win. And then there are the Giants. Let me say this about the Giants, because there's been a strong stench emanating from the Meadowlands for a long time now. And I have to admit, I find the New York Giants, as presently constructed, to be quite entertaining. Jackson Dart and Scatterboo and well, they're scrappy and they play hard, and well, they bowl coaches with a strong stench of desperation, doesn't he? And so I find them interesting. They're at 2-5 and firmly in the cellar of the division, but who knows if they can keep this trend going in the right direction. Maybe they can catch Washington. Who knows? All right. NFC North. Well, the Packers, the other team in the league with that tie, 4-1-1. They're atop the division. They have given up the fewest points in their division. Well, they're tied with the Vikings, fewest points allowed in the NFC North. But most points scored in the NFC North belongs to, put them up, the Lions. And so I think it's going to be a very interesting battle down the stretch between the Packers and Lions and Bears. Oh my, and I don't know what the Vikings are going to do, but the Vikings are 3-3 and the Bears are 4-2. That's an interesting division to keep an eye on. The NFC South. So in the NFC South, well, I expected that the Bucs and the Falcons, the Dirty Birds, would be battling it out for the division and maybe a wild card for the other. And, well, interestingly enough, what do you know? The Carolina Panthers are 4-3. What? 4-3. Now, they've scored less than their defense has allowed. Troubling sign. But hell, you could say the same thing for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has actually scored 1 point fewer than their defense has allowed. And they're at the top of the division in 5-2. And then the Falcons at 3-3. Well, this is an interesting division also. And maybe there'll only be one playoff participant from this division. But the Falcons at 3-3, they've given up 10 more points than they've scored on the season. And so you see, that's where they are. In fact, their 110 points scored after 6 games is the fewest in the NFL. And then finally, the NFC West, the division dearest and closest to my heart. Well, sitting in first place, wouldn't you know it, them damn Niners and Father Shanahan, and he's sitting there with a win over McWonder already. And it's almost like, how is he doing it? How does he do it? Father, you gotta give him credit. I say maybe I have to start calling him a sorcerer, a magician, because it's smoke and mirrors. It's gotta be. He's pulling rabbits out of his hat, Father Shanahan. And so I don't believe that the 49ers, them damn Niners, are gonna be able to keep this up the entire season long. I just don't believe it. Now, Father the Sorcerer may prove me wrong in the end. We'll see. And the thing is, there are 3 5-2 teams in the NFC West. You could make a case it's the best division in football. 3 teams all sitting at 5-2. Niners, them damn Niners, on top by virtue of the fact that they've beaten the other teams in the division. But I think it's sorcery. So, sitting in second currently, in terms of tiebreakers and percentage points and all that type of business, is Seattle, the Hawks. Well, 193 points scored in their 7 games puts them at first in terms of points scored in the NFC West. They have the most points scored on offense in the NFC West. And then at 5-2, your LA Rams, also 5-2. And the Rams, they're second in terms of points scored in the NFC West, but they're number 1 in the entire NFC in points allowed. That defense that I've been raving about all year, that I've been boasting about, is showing up on paper. They have the number 1 scoring defense in terms of points allowed in the entire NFC. And so there you have it. The 3 5-2 teams, and the Cardinals doing Cardinal things at 2-5. And so now, let's just quickly look ahead the rest of the schedule for the Rams after the bye, shall we? All right, coming out of the bye, New Orleans Saints, they're bottom feeders. Gotta chalk that one up as a dub. Ring that one up. And then, well, them damn Niners. Only this time it's up in Santa Clara. And originally, I thought that Father was going to win that game up there at home. And in a way, I still do think that. But I'm gonna be optimistic and say that the Rams find a way to go on the road and fight a tough, nail-biting, scratching, clawing defensive battle and win on the road against them damn Niners and Father Sorcerer. And then the Hawks come to the Palace in Inglewood, Seattle, and, well, I'm going to give the Rams an L there. I'm going to give them an L there. Well, because they can't win them all. You know this. And Seattle seems to be legitimate. And then the Bucks come to the Palace right behind Seattle, Tampa Bay. And I believe McWonder will have something for the baker. He's gonna put something in the recipe that's gonna foul up the product. And so I think the Rams can beat Tampa Bay. And then they face the surprising Carolina Panthers the week after that. I'm going to give them a dub there too. And so that's 4-1 in the next 5. 4-1. And now the back 5, the final 5. Rams, Cardinals. We're in December now. Ring it up. Dub. Rams, Lions. The Lions, put them up. Come to the Palace in Inglewood. Put them up. And, well, Maybe the kneecap biter bites a few kneecaps and the Rams take an L on that game. Then they go up to Seattle, the 12s. Are they going to lose there too? Maybe a loss there too. But then, well, Raheem and the Dirty Birds, the Falcons are next up after those, what I could foreseeably say are back-to-back losses. Then the Dirty Birds, the Rams go to Atlanta. I believe that'll be a Sunday night football game. I believe the Rams will get the Dirty Birds in Atlanta, and then they'll finish up with the Cardinals, who will be doing Cardinal things. And so ring up a dub there, and when you add it all up, my folks, that's 12-5, 12-5. And a postseason berth. And so that's what I believe to be the case. Yeah, man. And so now, what I'm going to ask of you, what I'm going to ask you to do is throw me one of these. Please like the video. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell so you'll be notified when I drop my next video. And the next video won't be too long from this video, because you know we will be back on the other side of the bye, and we'll chop up the outcome of that New Orleans Saints game. And stay tuned, because coming up soon, I have, fresh out the oven, I have a new Lakers preview episode for you on tap. And so until then, my friends, Scotty says, thank you for watching. One love.